Alrighty, so we're here today. We're seeing a new trend emerging, if you will, where phone scammers, they continue to take, advantage of our elderly citizens out in our communities. And here in the past couple of days, we had some scam situations happen out here in Precinct 4 where they're literally using the names of local officials. In this particular case, they used my name. And we had a situation where probably a couple of weeks ago, one of my Facebook accounts was compromised, and they basically went on Messenger and created a fake account, and they started asking people to donate money to charities in my name. And I had many people call me and say, "Hey, Mark, I'm going to donate to your charity," and of course it wasn't me, and we ended up reporting that account. We got the account taken down. We did launch a criminal investigation, and the account originated out of Nigeria, which that's challenging for law enforcement from a prosecution standpoint. And then a couple of days ago, we had an elderly victim that went to a local bank, and she went inside and was trying to get $1,400 in cash. And as she's sitting there with the teller, she said she's on the phone with an individual, and the teller is alert enough to basically listen to the conversation a little bit. And the elderly female says, "I've got Mark Herman on the line. I need to get him this money." And well, the ironic thing is that teller knows me personally. The bank that this individual was at was my wife's bank, where she's the manager. My wife stepped in. They immediately notified law enforcement. I think our folks got out there in a couple of minutes. And when we got out there, the scammer was still on the phone with this lady. And at some point, one of the officers intervened and spoke to the lady, and the lady tells this phone scammer that the police are here. They're saying this is a scam call. And the guy says, "Ma'am, I know where you live. You live at," and gave her address, and said, "That's all I need to know," and hung up on this lady. So these scammers are, they're obviously doing their research on who they're calling. They know where they live. We were able to stop this individual $1,400 loss from this lady. In this particular incident, the scammer wanted this lady to go to Walmart and buy these prepaid loaded credit cards. And he basically told her, you failed to appear in court on a federal subpoena, and you can either pay your fine or we're coming to arrest you. And basically terrified this lady. So the lady was going to pay the money on something that she was never involved in. This scammer was very, very convincing, and to the point where these victims are really just willing to give money to these individuals. 2 days after that, yesterday, we had a total of 4 or 5 incidents reported out here in Precinct 4 where individuals had received calls saying it's from me, from Mark Herman. And I think a couple of the incidents, we had people literally show up here at the office and say, "Hey, we're just making sure that was the constable that called us. We're going to get him his money for charities." And so they're using the charity route, and they're also using the warrant. You have a warrant out. Well, what we want people to know is that we would never call you and ask for money for charities. I give thousands and thousands of dollars every year to charities. But I would never call individuals whom I don't know personally and ask for money for charities. We would never call you and threaten to arrest you and put you in jail if you don't go take money out of a bank. These individuals are very good. Now, what I can tell you on the one particular case at the bank incident, this scammer is going to have him some sleepless nights because he made a few mistakes. We know that the number he used was basically he used a shell network in Canada to mask his original number and IP address, and we have already subpoenaed that information to get it. And I just hope he lives here in Houston or close to where we can go arrest him. I feel confident we will make an arrest in that case. Although our victim did not have a loss, there's some the elements of harassment and terroristic threat that we feel meets a crime. But the main thing is we want our citizens out there to know that This is just a new trend where they're using names of local officials, and I predict it to keep happening because obviously they've been successful so far, and in some of the cases. People that are in law enforcement or public safety are the ones people trust, and people, will talk to them and want to give to whatever they feel needs to be, given to. So with that said, I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments that any of you may have.
Does this happen in other offices?
It's happened. Well, these particular cases occurred here in Precinct 4. Now, as far as other law enforcement agencies, we're networking right now to find out if any have been reported in the city. I know in one case, there was a case in Montgomery County, right over the county line, where a lady was called. And so we're trying to connect all the dots. But I can tell you that here at our office, we have a very good high-tech crime unit that does nothing. They track child pornography cases and credit card cases that are done online. They're very good at what they do. We work very closely with the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. If we can connect the dots, we're going to follow those dots as far as we can and hopefully make arrests.
Do you really believe that they might be, you mentioned the first in Nigeria, but do you really believe that there's other people here, probably here in Houston, doing this?
I do, and I think there are other victims out there. I think that and that was the whole reason we wanted to get the media involved, so we can get this, first of all, get the message out to don't give these folks anything. Hang up on them. Don't even talk to them. But more importantly, we feel like there may be other victims out there that maybe have voice recordings of messages they may have left or numbers that may have on their phones. And if there are, we need them to reach out to my agency or law enforcement, get a report done so we can put all of this together.
Are you able to track down and arrest people like this? It must be hard to.
It's difficult because a lot of times they will, like in this case, they use a shell network of a phone company in Canada to mask the number, and so another number come across. But that company, we've done subpoena them. They have the information of who the person was, what number it originated from, and hopefully we'll be able to track that number to our suspect.
What sort of charges would they face?
Well, right now, in this one particular case, there was no loss because the police intervened and the bank teller did a stellar job alerting authorities. She didn't have a financial loss, but there is elements of terroristic threat and harassment, and we will vigorously pursue those with our district attorney and get charges filed if we can get this individual identified.
Coming September 1st, there's a new law, state law, that tries to prevent telemarketers, for example, to be calling you or harassing you, right?
Right.
How now identifying this law coming into effect on September 1st, do you think it's going to be easier for people maybe not to answer these phone calls if they don't recognize this?
Right. Yeah. And the new law and the new phone regulations, from what I've read up on, will stop a lot of these calls from even occurring, from going out. And but as far as enforcing it from a law enforcement perspective, we will handle those cases just like we do any other case. And from taking the reports, having our investigators follow up, and prosecute them if we can.
Have you talked to other agencies such as Social Security, for example, administration? Because I have gotten calls telling me that my Social Security needs to be given out to this individual because I'm in trouble, and I know it's a scam. But they use these other agencies that, of course, they're not going to call you and tell you anything about your benefits or anything like that.
Right.
So what's the message to the community here?
Well, the message is first of all, the Social Security Administration, we deal with them a lot because we sometimes get scam calls such as that. There's a reason why they want that Social Security number. And the Social Security Administration pushes out through their social media about the do's and don'ts. We would never do this and call. They normally would deal with you through the mail. But the message is, don't give people. I was out yesterday evening and my wife and I were walking, and I thought to myself, well, how many people that I know would call me and say, hey, Mark, can I get your credit card number, or can I do this? But then when you have somebody you don't know call you, but let me tell you, folks, these scammers are convincing. The guy actually that called the lady at the bank, I was told he sounded like me. And so there's other variables in this. And like I say, a couple of people showed up here literally wanting to make sure and let me know that they're going to give to this charity. And so they're very convincing. And, you know, and our elderly folks, you know, without education are more vulnerable. So we just have to keep pushing information out to them, pushing crime prevention tips out to them to stop these scammers. You know, I'm sure after today, they'll probably quit using my name and start using someone else's. But we want the community to know that this is not legitimate.
Which bank was it?
I don't want to say the name of the bank. Yeah, I would really rather keep them out of it because this could be negative press for them. I can tell you they deserve an award for what they did, because had they not called us, we wouldn't have found out about this till yesterday. And because I don't know that the lady would have even went to report it. I can assure you there are probably victims out there that this happened to, and they've given money and they're just too embarrassed to come forward.
So could you just walk us through, so the call gets to the lady and then he tells her to go to the bank? And,
Right.
or
Yeah.
He
Okay.
takes a little bit of
Yeah,
time.
and I'll cut it short, but basically, so he calls the lady explains to her he's me, and you failed to appear in court. You had a federal subpoena to appear in court. You didn't. So you have a choice. You can either pay your fine, or we're going to come in and pick you up. And she asked him how much was the fine. He said $1,400. And you can go get the money out of the bank, go down, and literally he told this lady, go to the Kroger's at such and such on Spring Cypress. In other words, like he's from this area. He was very convincing. And so she was at the bank taking cash money out to go buy these preloaded credit cards. And from there, we anticipate he was going to basically call her back and get those numbers off those cards and use those to, funnel money. That's normally the way they would do it.
What about this, one of the newest caller scams is that they're creating a template of a caller ID, so it would already say Mark Herman on there.
Yep. Well, in this case, the and I don't want to really go into a lot of this case, but I think it's important to, because normally, I mean, those of you that know me know that I hold my cards very close to my chest on everything we do when it comes to crime fighting, because I don't want the bad guys to know what we're doing. And so it's kind of like a game of poker here as far as us against the bad guys. But in this particular case, this individual knew a lot about our victim. He did his research. And, I don't really want to go into what I was discussed with her, because we're going to use that later in our case, because I do feel confident that we're going to get somebody identified, and this won't be his first victim. And so if there's any victims out there that have not contacted police yet, we want them to. We want to get those reports generated, and kind of go from there.
On the charity scheme, sorry,
Was this a case where we had a pre-made template? Because Apple has dealt with this, where someone gets a call on their iPhone and it already says Apple on there.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. Yes, okay? And at one point she said, is there a number I can call you back to prove that you're, with Mark Herman? And he said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I'll have somebody call you back. And so he called back, and the number that he called back from went back to the Harris County Sheriff's Office, to their non-emergency number. And so she felt like it was a legitimate thing, because it was a Harris County number. And she didn't know it went back to the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Our investigators, when we saw the number that she gave, that we knew, what he was doing. And so they do that to gain confidence, to let these folks know, hey, I know what I'm doing. I know who you are. You can either pay your fine, would rather you pay your fine, or we're just going to come pick you up. And so they put these folks in a state of fear, and they threaten them.
My question to you is on the charity scam. We're talking about two different scams, obviously.
Right.
The charity one, how much were they asking for per person, or they're just
Yeah,
asking for general donation?
different amounts. And I will say, we were able to get those accounts taken down.
Yep.
Because I think after 6 or 7 people reported as fake accounts, Facebook will take them down. But we got the IP addresses, and we know where they originated from. Again, from Nigeria, and the agreements that the United States has with Nigeria, there's very few as far as cooperating with us, and So it's just kind of, we just gotta, I blasted out on my personal page what was happening. And if that if folks got a message from me to report it as a fake account, because I don't even use Messenger. I don't, so, but they reported it and Facebook took it down like in, I think hundreds and hundreds of people reported it, but they took it down like in 3 hours.
And you said that account was hacked somehow? Or?
They created another account with
They
my
created-
picture.
okay.
Yeah, with my picture. They basically went and found pictures of me and put it on the account and created a fake Messenger account on Facebook.
That's another crime, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it'd be that's coming from Nigeria. If we could figure out who it is, and it'd be a federal crime. So, and that's still ongoing.
And what was the amount they were asking for?
Different amounts, $100, $35. I mean, little amounts, because if they get a lot of people, if you get a lot of people to give you 20 or 30 bucks, it adds up quick. And a lot of people, I'm sure gave to these charities and did what these people wanted. And so these folks, they do get successful in doing what they do. But from a prevention standpoint, if we can get the word out and work with our citizens and let them know that we would never do some of these things that's happening out there, and to call your police if you're ever in doubt, call the police and let us look into it. And if it's something, if it's a scam, we're going to just tell you. But these are becoming more and more prevalent. But now they're starting to use again the names of people that people know, and so here we are.